if it starts.
Ever since a baby, I've been trying to get away, trying to lock in the guap, trying to block with the pain. I'm a blind little boss, I'm on top of the game. I've been tired a lot, now I'm tossing your bait. Yeah, my pops got caught, didn't lock them away. My mom fought hard, 5 jobs in a day. I'll be dropping the box, but I'm copping the pain. We off to the stars, we're a tropical place. So, yeah, I'm spitting it heavy, the mission is steady. Your bitches are jelly, I'm ditching the petty. You're digging for pennies, I'm itching to ready. I open my heart when I listen to Shetty. I'm bold like a boss, but I'm little like Debbie. I know what the bros, I got richer than Getty. I'm holding the guap and I'm whipping the Yeti, yeah, Kari can play with advanced moves. I'm fucking my girl and her man too. I'm taking the ball like the ran do. My soul is the one that I can't lose. I soak up the sun like a sand dune. I'm holding up love with the bamboo. I'm rolling the blunt by the candle. Taking the game, running it back without taking a drink. Yeah, I'm the one and I'm making a wave. Rolling the blunt and I'm blazing a J. I'm escaping the brain, go straight for the cake. I'ma take to the bank, now taking a break. I'm made for the race, I pray for the day. I wake with a bake in a great estate.
Welcome back, everybody. I'm Jay, he's Maddie, and it's Sunday pregame show.
Yeah, welcome to our Sunday pregame show, guys. Week 9 of the NFL season, and things starting to form. Like, we're starting to get an idea of who's actually good, who's not so good, and we're really moving. We're really starting to move on with the season here, and this week is no exception. And it's an exciting week. Loads of great games. Jay, are you excited for this week?
I am.
Yeah,
I do hate Sunday night games for my team, but
yeah,
okay.
It's fun to watch your team on a standalone game, I always think.
I don't, because I hate waiting. The anxiety of fucking waiting sometimes is worse than the game. Like, I'm just like, can we fucking just get it over with already?
Yeah, I think I support the Dallas Cowboys, so the attention is always on the Dallas Cowboys whenever they play, whatever window, whatever. But I quite like when the Vikings are playing, for example, and we like can just both know that we're just watching the entirely same game and all of that kind of stuff. I quite like when my team are on because all the opinion shows are about it and all of those kind of things. I just think it's fun to watch. And Jay, a standalone game. Sorry, Hugo.
I was just gonna say I ignore you fuckers when the Vikings are playing, and unless I'm angry. I ignore you because I'm not one. You've noticed, like, I'm not one to like talk shit and brag. I don't do that because I feel like that shit will come back to slap you in the face, right? But I'm like, man, when they piss me off, I'll let the group chat know.
Yeah, a standalone game that I think most people were kind of watching. It was a very fun game. Was the Jets versus the New York Jets versus the Houston Texans. The Jets come out of there with a win, 21-13. Jay, how much of a problem is the Texans O-line?
A big problem, but the Jets should have won that game by 30. Let's just start with that. They should have won that game by 30. You and I were messaging this. First, stop dropping the fucking ball before you get to the end zone. Like, can we fucking stop? And Aaron Rodgers made a good point, and he wasn't mad at dude, and he said, he felt bad. He'll never do it again, blah, blah, blah. But Rodgers is like, that's your first touchdown. You keep that ball. Like, what are you dropping it for? That's your first NFL touchdown. But that O-line is atrocious, and it was worse than a Jets O-line who was playing with 4 tackles. They had no guards. Everybody's hurt. Their backup tackles are playing guard, and the Jets' awful line was better. That's how fucking bad the Texans' line is.
Yeah, they were completely annihilated during that game, and there was not much that CJ Stroud could really do at all. Aside from Laramie Tunsil, there's not really anyone on that line that is any good. And it felt like every time the Jets went against either Kendrick Green or Kenyon Green, who is now out, but so Kendrick Green will be starting. They just had their way with them immediately. The Jets got 8 sacks in that game, which is tied with the record of Jet sacks in a game. I think Hassan Reddick got 9 pressures or something ridiculous like that in the game, and CJ Stroud couldn't do anything. And when CJ Stroud actually had time in the pocket, I thought Tank Dell did a good job of getting open, but Tank Dell is a intermediate to deep route runner, and they had no short game to offset the fact that their O-line couldn't hold up.
They couldn't come back because even when they gave him time, he had been hit so much, he was hurried, and all of his throws he was making awful throws in the fourth quarter. But that's because he was just getting his ass whooped for 3 quarters before that. So whenever he got time, I think he was shocked. Like, he didn't expect to have time.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought they could have run. I thought Mixon still had a good game. Like, it looked like at points like Mixon had the opportunity to take over the game. So I I didn't really understand why Bobby Stoic wasn't just running Mixon just more, just the whole time, and really only passing off play action. And I wonder if it's because he knows he has CJ Stroud, and CJ Stroud is that good that he can
but when
do
your
it.
offensive line is pass blocking for shit, but run blocking great. They were blowing up the defensive line for the Jets sometimes and blowing holes that you and I could run through on some of them. Some of them Mixon just made happen. Don't get me wrong, but I'm with you. I thought, if you just keep running this ball, there's no way the Jets can win this game. And then as soon as the Jets took the lead, it was like they never looked back.
Yeah, it's like I understand why they threw the ball from when they were behind. I get it. I understand the logic there, but CJ Stroud went 11 of 30 for 191 yards. That's 30 actual passes thrown. That's not including dropbacks in which he was sacked. So that's 38. If we're taking those, that's not including. So that's at least 38 because of the sacks, but then there's also times where he runs on a drop back. So 11 off about 40 dropbacks is pretty terrible. But of 24 carries, Joe Mixon got 106 yards. So I understand teams going away from the run when they're behind. I understand it. I get it. I get the need to do it. But you're making more yards every time you run than you are every time you throw. So why not just keep running until they have to completely sell out on the run, and then you actually have some options of some short routes, some Dalton Shorts routes, and all of those kind of things as well. I didn't like the play calling there. Jay, are the Texans a Super Bowl contender?
All right, sorry, nobody wanted to watch me blow my nose. Not right now. And I don't know if you can fix that line. If you're down one person and it still takes trades, you can fix a line. Like the Vikings, we can talk about that later, went out and now he's not Christian Darrisaw, but came up with a good replacement and did what they needed to do. But like the Jets, you can't fix 3 or 4 spots on the line. Do you know what I mean? Like it's impossible. And even with Cam Robinson, I'm nervous. How does he gel? You know what I'm saying? Like, so an offensive line, Mark Schlereth used to always joke, and if people who don't know, 3-time Super Bowl champion offensive lineman said, offensive linemen have to be doing the same thing. If they're all doing the right thing, it'll work. And if they're all doing the wrong thing, it'll work. But you got to be doing the same thing. And that's where I don't know. I don't know what the Texans do from here to try to make up for like the offensive line deficiencies, except you just got to run the ball. Like I'm seriously 35 times a game and hope that because you run so well that you can use play action because it's still a run blocking scheme.
And they get Nico Collins back next week, who can run those good short routes, gets open quickly. So they do have more options on that as well. Tank Dell is actually a very play action friendly wide receiver as well in terms of the routes that he runs. A lot of intermediate routes over the middle where he separates guys with.
And then he was hurt at the end of the game, so they were throwing to like Dalton Schultz and like 3 tight end sets. And when your top 3 receivers are hurt too, there's a problem.
Yeah, you're going to struggle there, aren't you? I thought the Texans' defensive line played well enough. I thought the Texans' defense played well enough. I think Garrett Wilson made some spectacular catches that were the difference in that game. They
played decent in the first half. The second half, the Jets clicked, and I was like, I felt like in the second half, I'm like, oh, the Jets may have found their footing. Like I think their offense may start clicking now. And you're right. We can talk about how amazing Garrett Wilson is too, because that shit was fucking awesome.
Yeah, Jay, should Garrett Wilson be the Jets' number 1 wide receiver? Is that who they should be going towards more often? In
theory, you can say that, but I think they're best served with no number 1 receiver, right? Like this is the first time, and I didn't realize this till the game or after the game when Rodgers said it after the game. This is the first time in his career that Devontae Adams has ever played the Y. He's always played the X, right? So I don't know. If those two play like they did in the second half, I think the Jets are hard to beat. And what the Jets have going for them is they have a weak-ass schedule going forward. But I will say Garrett Wilson proved all the hype behind Garrett Wilson that we have been talking about for years. Well,
I think
years. I made it sound like he's a 30-year vet, right?
Yeah, I think since the difference for me in that game was that they didn't throw to Garrett Wilson in the first half, and they threw at Garrett Wilson on big downs in the second half. They just went because they were big downs that they were throwing him to, and they were quite speculative balls that he was making those catches on. They were two risky throws, and he made two great catches.
Now, not in the same league, obviously, but you and I both benefited from the 30-piece Garrett Wilson put up.
Yeah, definitely.
I have to ask. I say yes, but is that a better catch than Odell Beckham's one-handed catch, the one in the back of the end zone? I say yes. I think there's a new king for one-handed catches in New York.
Yeah, I think it's the angle that he's at, right? Like Odell Beckham could kind of
and the way it was thrown.
Yeah, it was kind of looped in, and Odell could like take it, and it kind of fell into him, whereas Garrett is turning in the catch to bring it down. I think what you are seeing is a lot of people saying, how is this catch? So I can't remember which game it was, but I think it was the Lions where he touched the same foot down twice.
So Jason Kelsey, who we can or cannot, we can touch that if you want, but we don't have to, made a good point after that. In the NFL, if you hop on 1 foot 16 times to the sideline, it's not a catch.
It's still not a catch. It's not a catch. That's the rules. You can disagree with the rules, right? I always think like you can disagree with the rules, and I'm not going to argue with you on that, but they are the rules. So you just have to go with it.
But sometimes we have to go common sense. So 1 foot and 1 hand equal 2 feet, right? Yeah. 2 feet equals 2 feet, and any other body part equals 1 foot. Now, I do want to know, and it's kind of impossible, but if a guy lands on 2 hands, is that a catch? Because he's got it tucked in and lands at, like, so that's what, if you know any other body part is 2 feet, then why are people upset that the shin is 2 feet? I don't understand. That's been the rules forever. Davante Adams helped win a playoff game with 1 butt cheek when he was a Packer.
Yeah, I don't get it. It's just, and I understand it from the ref's point of view here as well. So I think it's more like, this is just the rule. Like, this is the law. Like, and that's what they have to follow. And you can be annoyed at the rule, but that's not the ref's fault. That's the NFL's
complaining. But if you want 2 body parts, a foot and a shin are definitely 2 separate body parts that hit the ground, even though they're on the same. Yeah. But a shin itself counts as 2 feet.
Yeah, 100%. So it
kind of makes sense, though, because if you drag a body part like your leg, your ass, then even your forearm, it's like, okay, they were down in bounds. But I can see the argument the other way, too, because like we said, 16 times you can hop on 1 foot and it's not a catch.
Yeah, right. It's a brilliant, and look, it's a brilliant catch, and it's awesome, and it was a definite touchdown. And I think that was the swing in the game, and that's what the Jets have been missing, that red zone special play there. And both of his, by the way, we would also be talking about how great his first touchdown catch was if his second touchdown catch also wasn't unbelievable as well.
I even said in the group chat that was a fucking amazing catch by and then a little while later he outdid himself. Because that was a rocket. That first one he caught one-handed was a rocket, and he just was like, boom, let me right in. And I was like, damn.
If I'm the Jets, I'm like, Davante Adams can be the volume receiver. Like, that's why I like just throwing to whoever. There doesn't need to be a number 1. There doesn't need to be a number 2. But in the big down situation, I do think Rodgers, you can give Adams the hot route if you want. Like, give Adams the hot route, and if it's not there, then eyes towards Garrett Wilson and just launch at him and just see what special thing he can do. That's what I think
they're in a good position where you can do that on either side of the ball, though, right? Because Davante Adams is going to go up and make a catch too. But I'm with you. Those 2 catches are just spectacular, and I don't know what you say except for teams might be a little nervous going into play the Jets right now because it's not really good team. I think the only team who's over 500 that they play yet, now that can change by time they get there, is the Bills.
Yeah, they've got so next up they've got the Cardinals, who the fuck knows. So the Cardinals,
the best response ever. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, the Cardinals, the Colts, the Seahawks, Dolphins, Jags, Rams, Bills, and Dolphins again to finish out the season, which depending on who the Dolphins are, it depends. That schedule, the Rams are difficult, the Bills are difficult, and then it depends who the Dolphins and the Cardinals are when they show up to those games, right?
Right, but you need to win a couple difficult games to make the playoffs, right? And they have to.
They need to win every game.
They have to go on a run like the Packers did the year that Rodgers famously said, RELAX, relax, and then made that run to the playoffs. They're in that same. So can Rodgers do it? And I do like that Rodgers came out and admitted that he played the worst game of football maybe in his career, or half of football maybe in his career.
He was missing.
He said that. He said, I may have played the worst half of football I've ever played in my career.
Yeah, that's nice. Good from Rodgers to admit that as well. Okay, leaving that game in the book now. Moving on to this week's games. The kickoffs are in an hour and 10 minutes? An hour and 12 minutes.
Like that.
An hour and 12 minutes. So let's get on with the games and let's help you guys with your betting line so you know what games to bet, what games to stay away from this week. Jay, the Ravens are playing the Broncos. Are the Ravens going to bounce back in this game?
Yes, and I'm telling you right now, give me the -9.5. The Ravens are going to come out angry. They're going to win this by double digits. I hate these big point spreads. You at home, do what you want. I wouldn't put my money on this big of a point spread, but Maddie and I pick every game, so give me the Ravens -9.
Yeah,
he's going with the Broncos, guys. Just headline.
Yeah. Just so you know, the Broncos are my the Broncos. If you watched our Thursday show, you'll know that the Broncos are one of my best bets of the week. This Broncos team, their defense is one of the best in the league. I think Bo Nix has played really well. I don't think he's set the world on fire by any means. I just think he's playing exactly the way that we expected him to, right? In a system, started to not turn the ball over, making sure he can scramble for the first downs and stuff like that. I think he's playing well.
So anybody who's in a defensive league, fantasy league, Kyle Hamilton, 3 pass defenses and an interception after the way he let that game get away last week, because that kid is way too good to have that be the lasting impression we have on him for a while.
I can't remember which pick we took in that draft, but I remember the Cowboys passing on Kyle Hamilton and thinking, I understand why we've done it. I get it because you don't draft safeties that high, but god damn, he's so good.
We're getting crushed for it too because the Vikings pick Lewis Cine.
Okay, yeah. I mean, Lewis Cine looked pretty good coming out. I think Lewis
did at Alabama. What I've learned, and I hate to shit on somebody, is he can't understand the defense, and that's what stopped him from playing in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. I can't remember who we took that draft. That could have been the Micah Parsons draft, which is then why you understand why they didn't take it. They probably came out around the same time.
4 years ago.
Yeah, then that's about right. Or maybe it's either the CD Lamb or Micah Parsons. So both, you're like, okay. Fair enough. Jay, I think this Broncos defense is good enough to hang. I think the Ravens will win. I just think 9 points is a lot on the second best defense in the league, who have a quarterback who can scramble and is playing good football and has shown he can pick up that first down if needed.
I'm just banking on the Ravens defense crushing Bo Nix's dreams today.
I just don't think he's been bad enough to.
No, I'm not even saying that he's bad enough. I'm just saying the Ravens are going to come out and cause problems for quarterback, and they're going to keep him. I think they keep them 10 points or less in this game, and that's where I think the 9 points comes in. And people can have great defenses, and they do, but when you got to tackle Derrick Henry 25 times, it becomes an issue.
Yeah, definitely. I think the back end of the Ravens defense will be a problem for them at points in this game. I do agree with you. Kyle Hamilton's amazing, but I'm not sure how much they've got outside of that. Jay, moving on to our next game, then we've got the Bills versus the Dolphins. The Bills are 6.5 point favorites. I found this one quite difficult. What have you come up with this one?
Yeah, I wasn't sure. I went a little bit back and forth, but I just think that the Bills are playing better football than I thought they were going to play all year. They've impressed me, and it was last game or the game before, I don't remember, but Allen threw to 8 different receivers, so I don't think they have to really worry about that. And then Maddie, is it just my screen or is your screen going wild?
My camera's freaking out. And I'll turn it off and still be listening while I
All
try and
right.
fix it at the same time.
So as Maddie's trying to deal with some technical difficulties, I was going back and forth, and I almost went with the Dolphins, but everything in me just says to take the Bills minus the 6.5, which I don't love it, but that's where I'm going.
Yeah, so I had the same thoughts on this game going through. I thought the Bills are playing much better football than I thought. I think Keon Coleman could actually be playing the best out of all the rookie wide receivers that we've seen this season, which is interesting because there's been some great rookie like Malik Neighbors probably getting injured helps that a lot, and Roma Dunze's in a situation where there's a lot of wide receivers on the same team that needs the ball to be spread around, and Marvin Harrison Jr. blows a bit hot and cold, but Keon Coleman has made himself the number one in Buffalo, and I think he's playing some really good football as well. Josh Allen isn't making any turnovers, but then I ask myself, how much does Tua's return affect the Dolphins here? So Tua came back last week and they looked much better, and that was maybe with a bit of rust on him. How much better do they look this week? And where is the Bills' defense? Because I think the Bills' defense is playing really well. And Jay, where do you think Sean McDermott is in terms of his coaching ranks? And I think he gets a lot of unnecessary disrespect in the league.
I think he gets some disrespect. I think some of it's earned, and I also am still not sold at it for him as a head coach. I think Josh Allen does a lot to heal wounds over there, right? So I'm not sure. I would have moved on from him last year, so I'm probably the wrong one to ask.
No, I can see that because it's the defensive coach. How much do defensive coaches change things in the NFL? So I think there's good points on that side. I think he also though just does a lot with not a lot on his defensive side of the ball here in Buffalo. But I think Tua makes it a much closer game. I'm going to take the Dolphins in this one. I think the Bills will still win, but I'm going to take the Dolphins in this one. Jay, moving on now, we've got the Giants versus the Commanders. The Commanders are 3.5-point favorites. Should the Giants keep playing Daniel Jones till the end of the season?
Sorry, what was that? Should Daniel Jones okay. What?
Should the Giants keep playing Daniel Jones till the end of the season?
Yeah, because they need high draft pick.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they need a high draft pick. I think there's no point putting in going and getting Tommy Cutlets off the board again because you just get the same thing. And at least with Daniel Jones, you've already paid him he's already getting his money, so you don't have to go out and get anybody else.
Who's his backup? Is it Locke?
Drew Lock. Now, I would be interested to see Drew Lock. Playing some games this season, but I think they'll stick with Daniel Jones, and they might just keep Drew Lock on ice while this team is this terrible, and then he'll start next season while their rookie, whichever rookie they end up picking up, sits. Is what I would do, so everybody can just go into the season with a nice clean slate.
It's hard to bench a $40 million quarterback to justify him sitting on the bench. So,
yeah, definitely. I agree with that as well. Jay, has the Commanders' defense turned a corner? Something that we spoke about on Thursday, that they've had some really good statistical weeks so far this year.
Yeah, they weren't against the greatest teams, but yeah, I think they're starting to click, and I think they're starting to understand Dan Quinn's system. And the more they go into it, I think I said something to the effect Thursday, but I'm just amazed on how a team that was so dysfunctional turned into a team that looks like it's got a good fucking vibe going on, and it's good culture now.
Yeah, and loads of potential free agents and players who are on the trade block are saying, "Get me a deal to the Commanders." That report has come out in the news this week. Is the Commanders organization now one of the most attractive in football for players and for coaches?
Yeah, I don't know. I was reading Schefter's report, and I'd like to know which players, because I still have a hard time believing there's that many that want to run to Washington.
Yeah, I think if I'm sat there, I'm like, oh, as a Darius Smith, maybe to get out of Cleveland, get to Washington. Like, great city, great culture that they're building there now.
Why would anybody want Zadarius Smith, who after a year or two wants a new contractor to be traded?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's kind of shooting himself in the foot pretty much every time he does it. But I think there's other players out there as well. I think Washington is a good city to live in. Is obviously surrounded by other good cities to live in as well. So there's that element to it as well.
And Mike Tannenbaum suggested that the Cleveland Browns give up, or that the Lions give up Gibbs and 3 first-round picks for Myles
Garrett.
Yeah, for Myles Garrett. Wildest suggestion ever. Gibbs and 3 first-round picks.
That would be insane. I wouldn't do it myself.
No,
if it
never.
Was me. I wouldn't do it myself. Myles Garrett is only 28. I found out the other day,
but that's pretty much like 4 first-round picks you're giving up for Myles Garrett. That's wild.
Yeah, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is the one offensive weapon that the Lions don't utilize well enough either, which is interesting. To me.
He is their breakout, though. You know what I mean? He's their big play dude. So I don't know, but
yeah. Jay, in this one, Giants versus the Commanders. The Commanders are 3.5.
That was one of my locks.
This was one of your locks at the Commanders at 4. So I'm going to imagine that it's also a lock with them at 3.5. Yeah. I'm also going to take the Commanders at 3.5 this one. I think this is, for me, I'd say this is a must-bet game. Looking at it, I wanted to see how healthy Jaden Daniels would be throughout the rest of the week. And he's completely off the injury report, like nothing to report as of Thursday. So fit and ready to go. Jay, going to the Bengals. This was another hard one because of the point spread here, but the Cincinnati Bengals are 7-point favorites against the Raiders. Jay, how long does Zach Taylor get to keep his job for in Cincinnati?
Yeah, he should be gone after this year. Like, they start so bad every year that they put themselves behind the 8 ball every year, no matter what, and that's coaching. Yeah,
definitely. And I think keep him there till the end of the season because he's proved he can have good runs till the end of the season, but you can't keep starting like this. It doesn't build longevity in a team. So I would move off him at the end of this year as well. I wouldn't get rid of him until the end of the season now.
And the GM fucking letting Mixon go just proves how fucking inept that whole organization is right now.
Yeah, that was strange. Will the Bengals still make the playoffs? Joe Burrow coming out and saying we just need to win 6 of 9, I think is what he said, going forward. So do you think they're going to make the playoffs?
Probably.
I actually think that they don't quite play good enough football to like make the playoffs in these games. Like watching them against the Eagles last week, they just got destroyed by the Eagles in that second half.
I agree with you, but I was looking through, and I think there might be a team that ends up going 9-8 or 8-9 that slips into that 7th spot.
Yeah, the AFC has been the fall off of the lower ranks of the AFC has been pretty spectacular this year. So I agree with you there. Is Antonio Pierce the right coach to rebuild the Raiders?
I love AP. I loved him as a player. I loved him on TV. No, he's not. They gave it to him too early on a really bad team.
Yeah, I'd want to keep him in the building.
But you can't. You can't.
But you can't.
So he'll get a job somewhere else, but I don't think it'll be a head coaching job.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's his head coaching off. Jay, the Bengals are 7-point favorites. Who have you got?
Give me the Bengals.
Yeah, I've got the Bengals in this one as well. I think it's just I think the Raiders can be competitive in games, but not they can be competitive in quarters, but not games. You know, I think they struggle throughout the whole game.
This next one was the hardest for me.
Yeah, I found this one difficult as well. The Atlanta Falcons are 3.5-point favorites versus the Dallas Cowboys. Jay, why are the Cowboys better on the road this season?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's got to be matchups, right? It's got to be it's just got to be the matchups. I know that Cousins struggles against the Cowboys, but that defense is so It's not the same as it was in the past. And I think Cousins is going to come out and really want to stick it to Mike Zimmer. And this is why I am picking the Falcons in this game.
Yeah, I think answering the question why the Cowboys are better at home, I think they're better when the pressure's off. I think that Dallas has become such a pressure cooker now that it's every single news story has to relate to the Dallas Cowboys and what's wrong with the Dallas Cowboys. It doesn't help when Micah Parsons is going on his podcast and they're not putting Dak Prescott in the top 10 quarterbacks in the league with CeeDee Lamb and those kind of things, which is just stupid and just like a dumb thing to do as well. Just not helpful at all. So I think when they go away from home, at least the pressure's off more away from home for them. And they always get good traveling fans when they go away from home as well. So it's not like they don't have some support there, which is really good for them on the games as well. But Jay, will Michael Parsons be a Cowboy next year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's going to stay being a Cowboy. I think they're going to franchise tag him if he doesn't want to sign a deal, like no matter what. He's still there for at least 1 year next year, and then franchise tags are coming out as well. And I think it would be stupid for Micah to leave, just things like marketing opportunities, like all of those kind of things as well. If he wants to go ring chasing, then maybe not the place to be.
I don't think he wants to ring chase. I really think he wants to play for the Eagles.
Yeah, that's the reason why I'm like, the Cowboys is not the right place for you to be stuck because of the rivalry with the Eagles, which is tough to swallow for Cowboys fans. And Jay, I think this is the biggest question of the day in relation to this game, not just the Cowboys going forward, but have the Falcons completely unlocked this offense now? It looks like they've got something in. They've unlocked Kyle Pitts now. Drake London looks good. Darryl Mooney is having a great season as well. And then Bijan Robinson will be the question for the Cowboys. Can they stop Bijan Robinson? So, Jay, have the Falcons unlocked their offense?
Well, to answer that question, then you just got to call Kirk Cousins the key because he unlocked everything.
Yeah. I think he's let their offensive coordinators run kind of wild, and he's just whichever person is open. When you're covering an offense like that, there's going to be a mismatch somewhere just because of the players that they put on the field. And it's not like the Jets team is more talented. So Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson are more talented wide receivers. So they don't necessarily create a mismatch in terms of matchups that way, but they create a problem for defenses to cover receivers that are that talented. The Falcons have just got big body wide receivers and a speed guy to go down the field now, and big body tight end as well, which is going to create matchups everywhere. And Bijan Robinson is really good out of the backfield as well. I think Kirk Cousins is going to have a great game. I don't think the Cowboys have their defensive players back yet. If Micah Parsons was on the field and if Darren Bland was on the field, my answer would be different. But Falcons 3.5 for me here as well. So that's going to be a fun game for me to watch in about 50 minutes. How enjoyable. Jay, the Browns are playing the Chargers. The Chargers are 1-point favorite. Should the Browns be looking to trade more pieces?
No, not right now. Not if you want to make a run. I think they can win this game. As much as I love the Chargers, and I'm sitting here in my fantasy going, do I play fucking JK at the flex or do I put in TJ Hawkinson or Rome Odunze? Because I'm not sure J.K. Dobbins has a great game against this defense. And with that said, I'm taking the Browns in this game.
Yeah, for me, I think the Browns are... I think last week was a flash in the pan. I think it was thank God we're rid of Deshaun Watson. And look, I really like Jameis. I like the way that he plays the game. I think he's a good leader. He's going to be one of the best backups in the league. What I don't like is against this Chargers defense, and who are the best in the league. In terms of points allowed and those kind of things. I don't like him going up against that defense there. And I think Jim Harbaugh has got the Chargers doing everything right as well. Jay,
I think the Chargers are going to have a hard time keeping up with them in the points scored today. I think that's where the problem comes in because I don't think the Chargers can win from behind.
I don't think the Browns will. I don't think the Chargers will allow the Browns to score many points.
A lot
I think
of
the
talent.
Browns.
It's a lot of talent to try to keep from scoring points. Nick Chubb looked like he's back, and I don't know.
Yeah, their defense is the best in the league. Like across the whole league, their defense is the best in points allowed, and I think that that's going to be enough to get to stop the Browns. This is one of my super bets of the super bets. That would be a fun way to call them, but we call them best bets. That's one of my best bets of the week. The Chargers are -1 against the Browns. I think last week was a flash in the pan. I also think Jim Harbaugh has changed culture in LA already. I think they've just started to do things right, the way that they do things, which is not something you've been able to say about the Chargers for a long time. Jay, the Panthers are going up against the Saints. The Saints are -7.5 point favorites. How much of a difference does the return of Derek Carr make to the Saints?
I don't think it makes a ton of difference because they were looking bad before he got hurt, except for the 2 games. And I'm not sure. Derek Carr seems to turn back into a pumpkin every time. I'm just not a fan of the Panthers in this game either. So this is where I go back and forth.
Yeah, I think what we've got here are 2 bad teams, right? And they're the hardest. It's hard to bet on 2 good teams, and it's really hard to bet on 2 bad teams. And who's going to play slightly better out of the 2 bad teams? I don't think Derek Carr makes a huge difference due to the fact that the problem that's happened with the Saints is for those first 2 games, their offensive line looked brand new and absolutely unbelievable. And then since then, it got banged up and it's been terrible. And Derek Carr isn't the most mobile quarterback, can't play behind terrible offensive lines. Jay, I'm going to take the Panthers for this one. I think the point spread is slightly too big at 7.5.
Yeah, me too. I hate it, though. I think that the Saints could beat them by 10, and I wouldn't be shocked. Beat them by definitely. 21, and I wouldn't be shocked. But they could fuck around, and the Saints could lose this game, and I wouldn't be that shocked.
Yeah, definitely. I think the Panthers have.
You know what? I changed my mind. Give me the Saints -7.5 because they don't have anybody to throw to.
Yeah, because they traded away Deontay Johnson, which was a big part of my thinking as well. Xavier Legette, they've been getting the ball to recently. He looks pretty good. Hubbard has looked pretty decent out of the backfield at times as well. And we're talking about you've just got to look pretty decent to beat the 7.5 point spread against the Saints. That's the level of decent that we're talking about.
Yeah, I still don't know. That's why I just said give me the Saints, even though I don't love that pick.
Yeah, the Panthers are comfortably the worst team in the league, I think, and I don't think the Saints are too far behind of them. The Saints because of injuries, just to be very clear. Another battle of 2 of the worst teams in the NFL, but 2 teams that I would choose to beat both of the teams in the previous pick. The Tennessee Titans are 3-point favorites against the New England Patriots. Jay, who will be a better quarterback, Will Levis or Drake May?
Drake May probably, because he doesn't have that Carson Wentz gene.
Yeah, I could see Drake May having that gene, but I think Will Levis just struggles to put it away, and that's why they're going to be playing Mason Rudolph today. I don't understand playing Mason Rudolph because I don't think he is particularly safer with the ball, and at least Will Levis is just incredibly talented. He's just a fool. So you try and coach that out of him and just play him and just ride him till the end of the season and see what happens. Jay, how has Jared Mayo done in the for New England this season?
I don't like him as a head coach, but I might just be a fucking hater. But from day one, I don't like this.
Yeah, I don't love Jared Mayo as a head coach selection. I think they had loads of other places to go to try and change what they do in New England because they still have all the bases of the winning organization in the history. It's still there. You need to bring it into the modern day NFL, and I think they've just stayed the same with Jared Mayo. However, I do think he's coaching his team well this year. I think with the terrible situation he's been given, they've played a few close games. They won a division game last week, so I think he's been coaching his team well. I just don't necessarily think he's the best pick. Jay, Titans are 3-point favorites. Who have you got?
As I shit on Gerard Mayo, give me the Pats.
Really? That surprises me. I've got the Titans.
I think they're going to win the game.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. I've got the Titans in this one. I think their defense has been sneaky good, but as well. But yeah, I've got the Titans in this one. Jay. We move to Philadelphia. The Eagles are against the Jags. The Eagles are 7.5-point favorites here. Could the Eagles end Doug Pearson's NFL career today?
Yes, and the thing is I don't know how many people saw this, but the Jags and Pittsburgh had agreed on a deal for Christian Kirk before he broke his collarbone.
Yeah, which is just terrible coaching. Like, if you've got a deal agreed for someone and you're trying to clear the roster, why is he playing? Like,
because if you're Doug Peterson, you're trying to keep your job, right? So the GM should have been the one to shut that down.
Yeah.
I want to know what the agreement was. That's what I want to know. Like, what were they going to give up for Christian Kirk to go to the Steelers? That's what I want to know. We'll probably never know. But with that said, I think the Jags are fucked. I think they're just in a bad spot. And even with the talent, you can't overcome a bad culture, which Doug Peterson created and then said we need to create a new culture. So with that said, I hate the point spread, but give me the 7.5.
Yeah, in this game, I think the Eagles gave Doug Peterson the highlight of his career, the best moment. And I think today they might end his NFL career because I don't think anybody's going to hire Doug Peterson again after this. Rumors that the Jags are linked with Bill Belichick coming out more and more. I think that would be a weird move for Belichick. It's not the kind of culture that he's able to instill, like coming from there.
Well, he turns that defense around, and then you got a quarterback that's all he really needed in New England. They never, besides Randy Moss, they never had top flight receivers. So might be the best spot for him.
Yeah, I think the Jags are in a real roster development no man's land as well, because you've got Trevor Lawrence and you've paid Trevor Lawrence, right? And now it looks like they're trying to ship pieces, and it's like, oh, you've got your young quarterback that you've paid, and now you're taking stuff away from him because you're in a total development no man's land, and we don't know what's going on there. So I think the Jags are in a tricky spot. I agree with you. I think this season is over for the Jags, and I think maybe next season we'll see them click those pieces together and with a new head coach as well. And Jay, I think the Eagles are back. I think last week, the second half for the Eagles just proved that they're back on track and an excellent football team as always, which is unfortunate. The Cardinals are -1.5-point favorites against the Bears. Jay, which Cardinals team are we getting this week?
The one that loses to the Bears.
Yeah, I think they've been playing ridiculously well for the past few weeks. So now I'm just saying, oh, surely this is going to come to an end. Surely.
Look, I want the Cardinals to win. I'm picking the Bears.
The
Bears win despite shitty offense. That's the thing. Like, the Bears had that game last week wrapped up until somebody was John with the fans, but I won't drag the kid anymore.
I agree with you. I think the Cardinals, they are such an up and down team that it's really difficult to rely on them week in, week out. And actually, then their offensive line is a struggle for them. The fact that the reason that the offensive line looks better is because they've got Kyler Murray behind it. So he doesn't take as many sacks. He can escape pressures and get rid of the ball. And as well, I love, I think Kyler Murray is fantastic. I think they're starting to build a good offense there in terms of the weapons that they've got. I think Trey McBride might be one of the most underrated tight ends in the league. They do need a speed player downfield. I agree with you on that one because Marvin Harrison Jr. doesn't give you that. He gives you good route running and good separation on his route running and stuff like that. I think the Bears defense is good enough to deal with them as well. Give me the Bears at the +1.5 here as well. Jay, the Packers and the Lions are 2.5-point favorites here. Jay, would the NFL media give Jared Goff the MVP if he carries on like this?
Probably not, but I picked him as my MVP, and this was one of my lock games of the week too. I think the Lions go in and smack the Packers. I think Ben Johnson is one of the best play callers in the NFL. I think he'll be a head coach next year. And I think the Packers, I think people are giving the Packers credit for being better than they are. That's not to say they're shit. I just think that they're getting a lot of love for beating a lot of bad teams.
Yeah, I agree
No
with
pun
you.
intended, but that worked with a lot of love. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good one. I agree with you on that one. I think looking at the way that they play the game as well, the Detroit Lions here. The Detroit Lions play nasty defense. Like teams lose the week after they play Detroit.
I think cheap is what you were looking for, but that's okay.
Cheap is fine, but that's the way that they play, right? Like that's the way that
they knee hunt.
Yeah, they're going for you. There's a reason that the team that play the week at there's a reason that the teams that play the Lions then lose the week after, and it's because they're beat up because they've just played the Lions. And I think this Packers offense is incredibly lightweight. Like when you look at the Packers offensive line, when you look at their quarterback's injury issues, when you look at their wide receiver room, it's a lightweight offense. And I think they could struggle with the nastiness here.
I think they got a top wide receiver room. I think it's everything else that's a problem.
I think they have a great wide receiver room. I just think it's maybe like lightweight in terms of like when the Lions get up in press, how are they going to deal with that in those wide receivers? And Josh Jacobs is their running back. And Josh Jacobs is a good running back, like very good. He has a real bad history with injury issues, and he's not the kind of, my camera's gone again. He's not the kind of running back that's going to run it down your throat 30 times a game, especially against this harsh Lions defense. So I can see them getting overwhelmed here in the game. Give me the Lions at 2.5 as well. Jay, the Seahawks are playing against the Rams. The Rams are 1.5 point favorites. Jay, Rams Super Bowl back on?
Maybe. I don't know. I know they looked a lot better with their receivers back. I still have questions about their offensive line, and their defense does give up some big plays. But in this game, I got the Rams minus the 1.5 because I don't think it'll even be like that close of a game.
Yeah, for me as well. I think they're super dangerous when they've got all of their players on the field. Like I think Puka Nacua went off at practice.
Yes, he did.
As well. I don't know if he's making it for the game. I haven't been able to check. So I really like the Rams, and we both picked the Rams as our Super Bowl pick going forward. So I think with Sean McVay, I think their defense is expected to play great. I think with Sean McVay, I think with those offensive pieces, I think the Super Bowl might be back on with the Rams, mainly because their division hasn't gotten away from them while they've been not playing good football. So the NFC West is very, very close right now. For me, the Rams. Jay, are you surprised as to how good the Rams defense has been without Aaron Donald?
No, they've shown that they've been able to adapt, adjust, and draft. I think their only problem on defense is they give up big plays.
Yeah, definitely. I think that as well. I do think they give away quite big plays. They're good every down. They're very, very good as they go through. Sorry, buzzes and cameras and stuff like that going crazy. But I'm surprised by how good they've been as they've been going through as well. Give me the Rams minus 1.5 in this game. Jay, who do you think will move on from their quarterback first? Was the question I was trying to get to there. Do you think the Rams will move off of Matthew Stafford first because he's getting on? His arm's gonna fall off soon, or Geno Smith at the Seahawks?
Geno will be the first one gone, but I think they both have to start looking for the future quarterback. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. If I'm the Rams, I'm definitely drafting a quarterback in this next draft window as well.
I know they drafted Stetson Bennett, but I don't know what happened ever since he went to rehab, so I'm not sure where he is at.
Yeah, I'm not sure that Stetson Bennett will be making it onto an NFL field. Again,
I didn't think he should be drafted, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think if he was particularly good and had just gone into rehab, then yeah, I'm sure he'd
and he's old for a quarterback, a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Jay, we're moving on to your Vikings now. The Vikings are minus 5-point favorites against the Colts. How long will the Colts sit Anthony Richardson for? And did they pull him because of Brian Flores' defense? I was looking at this. So Brian Flores' defense gives the hardest looks for quarterbacks. It changed up all of the time. So is that why they pulled Anthony Richardson? They just went, you're not going to be able to deal with this.
No, they pulled Anthony Richardson because he tapped out of that game. And here's a weird stat for you, but out of first-round quarterbacks that have been benched, the only one to ever go on and stay with that team for more than another year was Mitch Trubisky.
Really? That's actually pretty interesting for Bryce Young. It's pretty interesting for Anthony Richardson as well. I'm not sure how long they sit him for. I'd almost see this week as a punishment, but quite a lucky punishment that they're able to.
I wish it was Anthony Richardson. I ain't gonna lie. I was like,
yeah, exactly. I think that Joe Flacco is a better quarterback for them to play against the Vikings. Here, I think if they lose here, which I think they will lose here. I think if they do lose here, then they might just go back to Anthony Richardson just to see what they've got because their season's over at that point. If they get a loss in this game, Jay. What do the Vikings need to do to win this game? What have they got to do? What are the big things that the Vikings have got to bring out in this game?
I think they just got to get back to playing the football they were playing at the beginning of the year. That's it. That gets you there. You got to get rid of the penalties. You got to eliminate the penalties. That's what's been fucking killing the Vikings and the refs, but you can't do anything about the refs. So they got to eliminate the penalties. I'm taking the Vikings minus the 5, but if they lose this fucking game, it might be, and I don't say blow it up, but it might be time to maybe trade fucking Cam, who you just traded for. Get rid of him and get your compensation back. Because if you lose 3 in a row, then what are we doing?
Yeah, I think with the Vikings, it's all about limiting the mistakes. I think that's why they've got beat.
It's not even the penalties; it's the pre-snap penalties that are a fucking problem. I can live with a pass interference, right? I can't live with a fucking false start and all that other dumb shit, illegal formation and all the other ones. They fucking kill you. And you can't win games if you're at 1st and 20.
Yeah, and I think they go under unforced errors, right? Unforced errors, that's pre-snap penalties. Things like holding, things like pass interference, they're forced penalties. So you kind of forgive them, but unforced errors has been unforgivable for the Vikings going forward. Jay, who have you got in this one?
Vikings minus the 5, but if they let me
you're
down,
actually picking the Vikings?
Yeah, I did last week too, but I'm driving to Minnesota and slapping somebody if they lose this game.
Yeah, I'll take the Vikings minus 5.
I'm just going to walk up to a complete stranger in the Mall of America and smack them and leave.
At least make sure they're wearing a Vikings jersey, you wouldn't like a Green Bay fan to walk into Green Bay and slap you for what the Packers did, that would be unfortunate.
Because it'll be fun, I'll just find an old person and just slap them down and walk. Okay, that's just, I don't know what the fuck.
Jay, in our final game of the week, the Kansas City Chiefs are 9-point favorites against the Tampa Bay Bucks. Jay, how can the Bucks move the ball on this Chiefs defense without their wide receivers? How do you think they can move the ball?
You just throw it to Otten all game? I don't know. I don't know. I think they're going to struggle. I think they're really going to struggle.
The weird thing is, right, Tampa actually looked okay for a large chunk of the game last week. They still scored 26 points on the Falcons.
Yeah, but that ain't this Chiefs defense.
Exactly. That isn't this Chiefs defense. That's the thing. Which is just the way it is. And they did it by going to Cade Orton a lot. Cade Orton seems to have come out of no. I always thought Cade Orton was a good tight end, but it turns out he might be very good at tight end. Just when they don't have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin to throw to as well. Jay, do you think D-Hop will get an increased role this week? Do you think he'll start to come into playing number 1 wide receiver for the Chiefs?
Yeah, I think they'll slowly keep moving him into that offense, but I think every week we're going to see more and more passes game plan for him to get him the ball. So, yeah, I think he'll be more involved this week than he was last week.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he'll just be slowly coming in. People who expect him to be a number one wide receiver straight off the bat, like I think that's not the way that the Chiefs really do things, right? They've proved it throughout. They're going to slowly integrate him into the scheme, and then he'll have a blow up game somewhere, and then that'll be it. They won't look back from there. Jay, the Chiefs. Oh, sorry. Could the Chiefs be looking to make more moves before the trade deadline?
Yeah. Their defense, I think, is pretty set. So unless you're going to add another wide receiver, which I don't know if they will at this point, then maybe. But I doubt we see any more moves from the Chiefs before Tuesday.
Yeah, I thought Christian Kirk would have been a good pickup for them actually before his injury as well. I think they could be looking at putting in under the corner. What I love about the Chiefs is they never get themselves in a place where they have to make moves, but they never stop making moves as well. There's these teams that get themselves in places where they don't have to make moves, so they don't make any moves. And then by the time that they start having to make moves, it's so much harder to make those moves when you've got loads of moves that you have to make going forward as well. Jay, fantasy players to watch is our third segment of the show. Jay, you said before the show this was a difficult fantasy players to watch, so I'm intrigued to see who you've come up with. Who's your first fantasy pick of the week?
Cedric Tillman, Cleveland Browns, second-year receiver, 9+ targets last week, 18+ points in fantasy football in consecutive games, and with them shipping off Amari Cooper, I think that's a guy you put in your flex. So Cedric Tillman.
Yeah, I really like that pick, actually. I think he's also, even if he doesn't go crazy, I think he's actually a really interesting player to watch. I think he's because he had such a good week last week, you need to see how he actually plays this week. Really good player to keep an eye on. Jay, mine is, I know this sounds like a crazy one because obviously everyone plays him every week, but it's Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill only has 60 fantasy points this season, which is ridiculously low for Tyreek Hill, especially on the return. When you compare it to return of investment and where he's going. Last week, he had a huge upgrade with Tua coming back to the quarterback position. So I think at second week, look at Tyreek Hill. If you've benched him because you've got frustrated with him, I'd maybe consider putting him back in at least the flex here with Tua coming back. Jay, who is your second?
TJ Hawkinson coming off an injury. I'm not sure if you should play him this week or not, but that's a guy to watch to see where he's going to be. I don't know how much they're going to use him. I could see Kevin O'Connell putting him in slow, or I could see him throwing him back in there and giving him a full workload. So that's where my hesitation. Before the kickoff, I have to decide if I'm switching out J.K. Dobbins for one of those, for Hawkinson or a Doomsday.
It's always rough to play in a tight end in the flex. It always feels a little funny, but I think Sam Darnold for
Moose killed it last year running Laporta and TJ Hawkinson both every game.
Yeah, 2 tight end sets in fantasy, especially when you're in a 14-team league. That's definitely worth it there. Jay, my second is actually to do with the Vikings as well. I've picked the Vikings defense and special teams. I think that the defense and special teams is a really underrated asset of fantasy here. I think the Vikings going up against Joe Flacco, look, Joe Flacco is much more reliable than Anthony Richardson. Yes. Joe Flacco is still Joe Flacco. He throws at least an interception every game. So I think the Vikings could look forward to that. They are going up against a good offensive line, so maybe the sack numbers might be a bit low, but I'd be looking at the Vikings defense if I was you. Jay, who have you got for your third fantasy?
Well, and then with your Vikings defense, they're going to stress that offensive line because they're going to try to make 5 cover 6. Yeah,
definitely. I think they're going to rush quite a lot this week as well. Jay, who's your third fantasy pick here?
Caden Otten, Tampa Bay tight end, because he's just went off. He beat the shit out of me 2 weeks ago. He looked good last week. And Baker really doesn't have anybody else to throw to at this point.
Yeah, so I played against K. Dalton last week. Luckily, I had Kyle Pitts at tight end in that same game, so they kind of nullified each other, so that was okay. But yeah, K Dalton looked amazing, and he seems to be a really favorite target for Baker. Obviously, going against the Chiefs offense, who don't give up much, but yeah, the matchup is difficult on that one. But Jay, for me, I've got as my pick, I have Chase Brown, running back of the Cincinnati Bengals, who going up against that Raiders defense. I think Chase Brown has been good for big fantasy points weeks. Chase Brown is not a very consistent fantasy points guy, but big points, Chase Brown. And I think this could be one of his weeks where he goes off. I think he could look incredible in this game. Jay, to finish off the show, I'm just going to share my screen if I can. We're just going to do
I'm interested to see if it works because they're having problems with slides. It warns you when you come into StreamYard. So
yeah, I know. I've not gone for slides. I'm just sharing my email screen because I saw that problem with slides as we were coming in. Can you see everything? Are we all good?
Yes.
Cool. So Jay, this is my Brits picks. Everyone, this is where I pick my top 10 teams in the NFL. This going into the Sunday of this week. Starting out with Kansas City as number one, as the only undefeated team left on the board. And I think they are playing the most winning football. I don't think they necessarily look like the best team, but they're playing the most winning football. I've got the Detroit Lions at 2. I think with Ben Johnson as their offensive coordinator, they're putting bad teams to the sword there. And I think they have a nasty enough defense to play that game. I struggled at 3 and 4 here. I couldn't decide. 3, 4, and 5. I struggled. They could go in any order for me, but I've got the Ravens, who took a bad loss against the Browns, but still look like the second best team in the AFC. I've got the Vikings, who lost to the Lions, but only by 2 points, and they lost to LA, but only because of refereeing mishaps as well in that game there. And then I've got the Commanders at 5, who needed a Hail Mary to beat the Bears. So where do they kind of rank against each other? I've kind of put them all in the same tier, but they're there at 3, 4, and 5. 6 is the much improved Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen. My camera is gone again. Much improved Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen not making any turnovers, which is great. Very on Josh Allen. Made his first turnover of the season last week. The Pittsburgh Steelers, now that they have Russ in there, another week of seeing Russ performing really well at the quarterback position for Pittsburgh. He's basically just gone, George Pickens is probably the best player on the Pittsburgh offense. I'm just going to throw it at him, which is a good way to play the game. I'm surprised the Steelers have taken that long to realize that. The LA Rams, I think, with all of their pieces, deserve to be on this board. I think their Super Bowl chances could still be on. I think the Chargers have got everything right under Jim Harbaugh. They have one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think Lad McConkey, we were talking about best wide receivers being Keon Coleman and other names like Malik Willis. I think that rookie wide receivers, Lad McConkey, could put himself up there, especially after last week. And the 49ers, as they're getting more... after their game against the Cowboys, I think they look really good. I think being able to run for 200 yards with your third string running back is going to put you in good stead, no matter who you're playing against. Jay, what problems have you got with that one?
Well, before I get to where I would change it, the reason the Steelers didn't do that is because they didn't have a guy that could actually throw the ball to Pickens. But now that Russell's in there, they do. I know you said this in the beginning. I would have went Washington 3, Ravens 4, Vikings 5, just because they were on a 2-game losing streak. And then I personally would have jumped the 49ers to 8 and then put LA and the Chargers, both LA teams behind them. But that's nitpicking.
Yeah, I think the 49ers they're too banged up for me still. We'll see how they fare with being banged up. The 49ers are on a bye this week, so good chance for them to get healthy. Sounds like
that ain't even at 500.
Sorry?
You got a team at 8 that's not even 500.
I know, I'm very aware. But they're healthy now. They're healthy now. They're healthy going in to the game. But yeah, they're my picks. Feel free to disagree with them in the comments. I like it when people disagree. Jay, we've done it. This has been a particularly quick show. this week. I think this is a good week for people to put a few bets on. Personally, I don't agree. I think you're about to see them.
They haven't beaten a good team yet. Like once they beat a good team, Josh, we can talk about them.
Yeah, I
when you beat up bad teams, you don't get put in the top 10.
If they beat the Lions, they'll easily fly into the top 10. Don't worry about it.
If they beat the Lions, I may stop talking about football.
If they beat the Lions, they'll fly straight into the top 10. But I just think the Packers on. I think they're too light on the defensive side of the ball and on the offensive side of the ball. I don't like the way that they play, and they haven't played any good teams yet. So, let's see.
And they got a turnover machine at quarterback. That never helps.
Yeah, a turnover machine at quarterback with an injury problem. They beat the Rams they beat the Rams when they were injured.
When they didn't have any receivers.
They beat the Rams with no wide receivers. Yeah, it's like they also beat the Texans, but the Texans, it turns out, have no offensive line. The Texans is the one game where I think, fair enough, they beat a decent team. But I've removed the Texans. The Texans were on the board last week, and now they're gone as well. But yeah, Jay, that was a particularly quick show. I think this is a good week for people to put a few bets on. I think it'll be a fun week here.
Yeah, I'm 1-0 with my locks. I'm trying to go 3-0 with them, so hopefully that happens. Maddie's screen just fucking hates him today.
My camera hates me. I'm going to have to see if it's the lead or if it's the camera. That's terrifying.
It's terrifying. Okay. Well, on that note, thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe. Tuesday is trade deadline. It's also election day, and if you're sick of politics like most people are, tune in on Tuesday night, watch MMA Underground, get away from that for a little over an hour. You don't have to worry about politics. And then you can wake up Wednesday morning and see which side is going to turn this into civil unrest. So enjoy your weekend before we have some angry people coming next week. Make sure, again, you hit that like and subscribe. Thank you for supporting. One world, one love. Deuces.
Cheerio.